Chris Gordy joining us. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
What's going on, man? Good to be on with you. It's a crazy matchup here for LSU A&M. It's I didn't think at the start of the year, looking ahead, this would be the game of the week in the SEC, but it's turned out to be that.
It has, Chris. And look, a lot of people ask me and have been asking me, we had you on before the season. They were like, Blake, can you bring him back? I'm like, hell yeah, because it's LSU and Texas A&M. I know that you know a lot about this conference, and we'll go around the conference a little bit. But, man, you know that I got to get to you about LSU versus A&M. When you look at them, what do you think of them?
Well, it's good on good, right? I mean, A&M has been one of the best teams running the football, not just the SEC, but in the country. And, number 2 in the SEC in total rushing attack. LSU number 2 in the SEC in passing attack. So it's good on good. It's funny. I think this game's going to fly by because I think A&M's going to run the football and try to get the clock going. I think LSU, they're going to throw the ball a lot, but I think, it's going to be methodical. I think they're going to try to make some big plays. And I think, it could be score. And, maybe this thing turns into a shootout. But I know A&M's MO is going to be to run the clock. They want to run the ball, get this clock moving. And to me, this is a big, big test for Connor Wigman at A&M. It's crazy that he's been there 3 years already. But the guy, I think he's only played in something like 13 games, in his college career. Like he's basically played the equivalent of a full season in his third year now. So the guy's just battled injuries and had his issues, but he's back healthy now. And talking to some folks at A&M, they're kind of curious to see how he responds too, because again, the run game's been good enough to carry them against Mizzou, the win at Mississippi State last week. But Wegman did throw 2 picks last week, and I hate to get into the hypothetical, oh, you almost did this, but he really almost had a couple more interceptions.
I just said that right before you came on. I swear to God. I was like, bro, he could have had 5 picks last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a big, big game for the LSU DBs, who I still think, I'm not 100% confident in. I think they haven't truly, been, the Ole Miss test was a big one, but other than that, I still have some questions on how they defend. This is going to be a tough, hostile environment. So, I think Blake Baker's done a great job of kind of figuring out who does what well. I know it's the thing we've been talking about, but like Harold Perkins, the injury's been a blessing in disguise. There's no trying to fit him in here or there. Everybody knows what they do and knows what they do well, and just go do it. Don't worry about you coming out, this guy coming in and all this. Just go play your role. And it's worked out great with Major Burns doing what he's doing, Sage Ryan doing what he's doing. And I like it, but I'm still, again, is there a question mark still in the PJ Woodlands, the Ashton Stamps? Yeah, obviously Zy Alexander back is a big plus, but on the flip side too, again, A&M has not their receivers. Like I thought there were so many articles written this offseason about Noah Thomas and how he was emerging as this go-to threat for A&M, and he was poised for a big season. And it's crazy. He's not even at 300 yards on the season. He's only got 3 touchdowns. So, him, Ja'Day Walker, Terry Bussey, of course, who, LSU was recruiting. Sounds like he's going to be okay. He got banged up last week. Mike Elko said yesterday he'll be a go. But, yeah, man, this is just a really interesting. Like, as much as people want to go, oh, is LSU for real? I think we're all looking at A&M saying, is A&M for real? You got to give Mike Elko credit for what they've done so far to get to this point. But I still think this A&M team is more of a 9-3, 8-4 type team, and I think the losses are going to come here. Although their schedule is very forgiving, man. I mean, a road trip at South Carolina, they get New Mexico State, they're at Auburn, and they're home for Texas. Like, can they go 10-2 with a win here? Yeah, absolutely they can. But I just feel like first year for Mike Elko, he's having great success, but it's the SEC, man. We eat our own. They're going to lose a game along here somewhere that they're not supposed to. And I just look at Brian Kelly in 3 years at LSU, like, this is the year you're supposed to take that leap forward. And it's even easier now. It used to be, you had to be the top 4 team. Now you only got to be you got to be in the top 12. Like, so I think this is a massive game for Brian Kelly, knowing that LSU's lost the last 2 times they've gone to College Station. Like, remember we laughed for like 8 years when A&M kept going, it's a rivalry. It's a rivalry. Every time we come there, we win. Now it's kind of a rivalry. It started with that stupid 74-72 overtime game. But
right.
To me, this is about LSU because you don't want to come out of this going, we've lost 3 straight in College Station. You don't want that.
Chris, I equate that to your last point there. I equate it to, remember when LSU going into last year's Bama game, they were 2-2 against Bama the last 40 years, and you're like, I mean, I know we've had our issues, but we've won the SEC West twice, and so have you, right? Like, I mean, it's either been you or us. So this game meant a lot. And I feel like, to your point, the last 4 years, especially for A&M, but LSU fans now trying to get into that because you're like, hey, man, to your point, we ain't won there since Barack Obama was the president. I mean, like that's been a moment. So I think you're right there. Chris, I want to start on some strengths that you maybe see with A&M. Maybe some weaknesses, but let's start with some strengths. What do you think that they just do really well all over the place?
Well, the one thing I'll say first off is Randy Bond has been phenomenal as a kicker. He's perfect on his extra points this year. He's 13 of 15 on field goals. He's a big weapon, and I just want to put that out there because if A&M's got it, if LSU's defense does a good job of getting stops and forcing him to kick long field goals, I mean, he's 4 for 4 from 30 to 39. He's 6 for 8 from 40 to 49. So, that's a secret weapon, a nice weapon to have, and it's in this league, you want to put points on the board whenever you can. And if A&M is able to do that, it's going to make it a little bit difficult on LSU. So to me, that first part is a strength. Now for LSU, obviously their kicking game has been a strength. Special teams player of the week for Ramos. So, but yeah, I mean, the other part is just how great they've run the football. I think, it was weird under Jimbo Fisher. They recruited well on that offensive line. They had 4- and 5-star talents. They had kids that were draft picks, but yet it felt like at times they couldn't get the push that they wanted. And Mike Elko, he knew what he wanted. He wanted to be tough and physical up front defensively, and he wanted to be a physical running team. And that's what A&M has finally been able to do in the post-Jimbo Fisher era here. And, look, it's funny, Blake, all this talk in the preseason about they lose Ruben Owens. And Ruben Owens, I thought, was primed for a big year. 5-star stud recruit from just outside the Houston area here where I am. And he was going to play this year. But don't get it twisted. Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels were still 1-2 on the depth chart. And I kept telling people that because it happened the same week CJ Baxter went down for Texas. And by the way, Texas is really hurting without Baxter. If they had him last week, I think they're in that game with
I agree.
But, we equated it to the same. And I said, look, God bless Ruben Owens. I think he's going to be a great back down the road. But A&M's bread and butter is still Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss. And both those guys have been phenomenal, particularly Le'Veon Moss. He's emerged as the workhorse, really, with almost 700 yards rushing and 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. So that's where it starts. That's where LSU's MO has to be this week. Make a bold prediction here. I think it's going to be another big week for Whit Weeks. I mean, you guys just a tackling machine already, but I think they're going to test LSU's interior front too. And I think they've done okay there. This mix of Ahmad Bro and JVR Suggs and Gio Paez and all these different dudes, they're making it work. Like I thought as soon as Jacoby and Guillory went down for the season, I said, oh man, they're screwed. Teams are going to come right up the gut on them. And they have done a good job of finding guys to fill those gaps. And so this is a monster week for those guys. The interior of this defensive line, Bo Davis, even on the edge, Kevin Peoples, those guys are going to be preaching. We've got to be stout up front and slow down that run because if you can force, I'm telling you right now, if Connor Wegman is having to throw the ball on 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s, it's advantage LSU as opposed to the 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s.
Chris, I mean, it's so wild, man, because literally this is exactly what I talked about. It was my number one point coming into tonight's show and just talking about hey, man, you got to have massive amounts of success on first down against A&M. You have to. I equate it to, the major Burns resurgence or emergence, however you want to, whatever vocabulary word that you want to use. Chris, he had 2 tackles on first down that went for no gains. Ole Miss got no points in that drive, right? So, I mean, look, there's things about stopping them on first down that I agree. Weaknesses that you see for A&M?
It's to me, it's that it's developing that, passing game that is a true threat. I think that's kind of been the problem with Wegman. And they threw it well against Mizzou. Terry Bussey had his breakout game. I think he had 76 something, receiving yards that day. Right. But to me, they haven't used their tight ends much at all. I thought Donovan Green was a big kid from a year ago, a freshman that got hurt. Like, I thought he was going to be play a big role. He doesn't have a catch this year. It's weird to me. I thought that they would be throwing the ball a little bit more. Moose Muhammad, who killed LSU 2 years ago, they barely use him. I mean, it's just been a little bit interesting to see how they've deployed that receiving core. But again, I think play action pass. I think LSU knows they want to run the ball, so that can set up the play action game for Wegman, and they can maybe take some deep shots. But I like LSU's defense, how they've been playing this week. I mean, Taylon Green, I know he was banged up last week, and Jaquindon Jackson leaving the game certainly was advantage LSU, but that was still Bobby Petrino calling the plays. And I think that they did a fantastic job defensively. They gave up some chunk passing plays here and there, but I don't know if A&M's going to do that. I don't know if that's going to be their MO this week. I think they want to just pound the rock and get to that second level with the run game. So, we'll see. Again, the 2 interceptions is what stands out to me with Wigman last week. And, if he's facing, put it this way, if LSU's getting some good pass rush off the edge and the obvious passing downs and Braden Swinson's doing his thing and they're chasing down Wigman and forcing him to get rid of the ball, again, advantage LSU, force him to make a bad mistake. I think it's very simple, Blake. I think LSU can turn the ball over once or twice, I think, and still win this game because of the way Nuss flings it. If A&M turns the ball over once or twice, I think LSU wins hands down.
Dude, we're right on the same. Me and you are the same. Even Chris, I equate this to a ball. Like A&M is expecting to go into a bar and throw hands, right? Like they're expecting to fight. Like they're putting on their cowboy boots, their Levi jeans, they're tucking in their shirt. Okay, cowboy button-up shirt, and they want to get in a fight, and they want to – I agree with you. I think they're going to say, hey, LSU, you got that dog in you. And I'm going, all right now. Dude, Ahmad Bro has been fantastic. So, I mean, okay. All right, don't test the voodoo. Don't test the voodoo in this week. That's all I'm going to say. Chris, what does it mean before we move on, I want to get to your thoughts before we leave you on the SEC, but what does it say for any team if they're the victor? Like, what are our thoughts about LSU and Brian Kelly if they win? But specifically, too, I mean, bro, what are we talking about with A&M if they beat LSU this week, too?
Yeah, it would be massive for them. And, I was talking with some folks at College Station earlier today, and they were saying, like, if he wins this one, I mean, I think you're talking, no offense to Clark Lee, but I think we're talking Mike Elko, potentially SEC Coach of the Year. And in a year where you add Texas and Oklahoma, you go to 6 teams, you eliminate the East and the West, and A&M could get to Atlanta. I mean, that would be huge. They've never been. Like, they've been in this conference for over a decade now. They've never been. So it would be massive. The thing that kind of sucks, Blake, is the eliminating of the SEC East and the West, because you realize this game would be, with Bama already with 2 losses, like this game would be for SEC West supremacy. Like you win this and you're in the driver's seat to go to Atlanta to represent the West.
Right.
East and West gone now. You get into head-to-head tiebreakers and all this, and Georgia's sitting up there, and maybe Texas is, they win out. So, I mean, it's, all that kind of stuff plays into it. But yeah, if this were still the days of the SEC West, I mean, massive. You would literally be like LSU 2 years ago when they beat Bama on the Mason Taylor, overtime. They were in the driver's seat. They went and lost at A&M. It didn't matter. They'd already punched their ticket to Atlanta. That don't happen anymore. It's wide open. So you got to win as many games as possible to try to get there. And, we can get into the whole, is there more of a benefit to not go to Atlanta and not potentially take a third loss and just use that as a bye week to get to host a playoff game the next week? All that's going to come down the road. But, certainly, again, this is to me about the upper hand, still be the lone undefeated team in SEC play. So, man, I keep looking at it and saying this is such a much bigger game for Brian Kelly, because I don't know if he's going to be this more talented next year. I don't know if they're going to be this much more talented 2 years from now. They should, right? They're going to recruit well, but for A&M, they're playing with house money. Like, they would have taken, if you would have told any A&M fan, would you take 9-3 this year? There was absolutely. That's better than the mess we just had with Jimbo Fisher. So for A&M, they're not going to crush him if he loses this game. For Brian Kelly, you lose this one, you still got Bama. You still, 9-3, that'd be really disappointing for an LSU finish from where they are sitting right now.
Yeah. And man, I tell you, I don't know if you want to go to Atlanta, Chris, and Why would you want to play Georgia in a loss and then host a playoff game the following week?
Well, and this is the debate I've gotten into with several people. I've said, if you're 10-2 and you go to Atlanta and you play Georgia and they beat you soundly and you take your third loss, are you in the playoff? I've had several people say yes. I've had several people say no. The argument is, if you lose in the SEC championship game, you're the second best team in the conference. So regardless, if you lose by a close margin or you get blown out, you still have reign as the second best team in the SEC. Yet I think the committee will look at it and go, well, you have your third loss and 10-2 Mizzou sitting there, or 10-2 Bama sitting there, or 10-2 Tennessee sitting there, 10-2 Texas. I think those teams are going to jump them. Again, that's for the committee to decide. But that's where I say that it might behoove you to not go to Atlanta. Because again, win the SEC title, who cares? Like, I know you get the first round bye, awesome, but like, you still got to go win playoff games. It doesn't, hanging a banner to win SEC championship. It will start to feel like the SEC championship is in basketball. Hey, quick poll question to all your listeners: who won the SEC basketball, SEC championship in basketball last year? No one remembers. You don't care about that. It's about getting the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they really don't. I mean, because I got to be honest with you, I don't remember. The only reason I remember that Tennessee beat LSU in the SEC baseball championship last year because LSU was in it. I mean,
right.
What was it, Vandy that won it 2 years ago in baseball? Like, I mean, maybe it's been different with baseball. I don't know.
Wasn't it Jay Johnson? Like one of the years he was like thinking about, we're going to rest this guy because who really cares about playing? Like it was almost like they were in the SEC tournament. They made a run. Yeah, and they were worried about hosting a regional or super regional. I was like, if we win the SEC, great, but who really cares? Like that's where it's gotten with the SEC championship games. It matters less now in football than it ever did.
Yeah, I agree. One final question, get you out of here. Thoughts? I mean, it's so open-ended. But thoughts on halfway through the season, what's happened in the SEC? What have you seen? What do you think?
Yeah, it's parity from top to bottom. And I said this last week or 2 weeks ago that I thought 1 through 15, anybody could beat anybody on any given day, with 16 being Mississippi State. Well, then we saw Mississippi State score 31 against Georgia 2 weeks ago and scored, a couple touchdowns against A&M. That was a one-score game with A&M with 7 minutes left to go in the game. This Michael Van Buren kid, he's a true freshman in this Jeff Lebby system, and he's playing his ass off. He's got 3 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. That kid, picture what he's going to be next year or 2 years from now. They're going to be a problem. So I think Mississippi State pulls off an upset somewhere along the schedule. I think they're going to win an SEC game before the season's over, and that will, I think, prove the point of literally this was a year in the SEC where 1 through 16, anybody could have beaten anybody on any given day. And to me, this is what makes the SEC great. We go back to the early 2000s. It was fun because LSU won in 2003. And then here comes Florida and Urban Meyer, and they win 2. And then Auburn comes along, and then Bama comes along. But then, it stopped getting fun, Blake, because it was Bama. No. It was fun when everybody was taking a turn and everybody kind of jumped up and all this. And then Georgia kind of came along and Kirby kind of did, and it was Georgia. It was like, no, we don't want just one team to dominate. It's more like LSU's in the perfect model. LSU's like, hey, once every 4 to 5 years, we get to or we win a championship. Like, that's where you should be for fun of the SEC. Right. And that's what your realistic expectations should be. The Bama expectations of championship every year, like, no, that's stupid. Like, you can't do that. Only Nick Saban could do that. But, like, I hope the SEC gets back to that. I'm not saying cheer for your brethren and cheer for other SEC teams, but it's just more fun when because then you can claim real conference dominance. You know what most haters have said the last 2 years? When you go SEC, we're the best conference. They go, bro, it's just Bama and Georgia.
Right. Right. So. Well, I'm with you on that. I think that's really real well characterized. All right, Chris Gordy, buddy, I know where they can, and it's on here, but tell them where they can find you, and I appreciate you joining us tonight, man.
Yeah, just search Locked On SEC wherever you get your podcast, talking all things Southeastern Conference 5 days a week and covering the whole SEC. Yes, I went to LSU, but I'm biased. I call it like I see it. When LSU sucks, we say they suck. I did a live show from the field in Las Vegas when they lost to USC, and said, what the hell's going on here, Brian Kelly? But great rebound for them, great rebound for Mike Elko losing to Notre Dame, and it's going to be a hell of a game. We're going to be talking a lot about it this week on Locked On SEC.
I appreciate